It's Power Hour LSU.
Let's freaking go. I want to know, whoever you are watching this right now, are you an end results person, right? Because this is going to be the ultimate litmus test of who you are personally, how you view how this game went down tonight between Indiana and Miami, because this is clearly the best coaching job of all time. Nothing comes close to what Curt Cignetti did for Indiana. And I don't care if you want to talk about age. I don't care if you want to talk about the experience, having a Heisman Trophy quarterback, the Big Ten being down in the middle portion of the conference. This is the best coaching job you will probably ever see. That includes Saban. That includes Orgeron. The fact that we just witnessed Indiana winning a national championship is truly mind-blowing. I don't know if this is the magic of Lee Corso being his final year on game day, or his final day on game day being this year. Whatever it was, what you witness, you might not ever witness in the world of college football. And more importantly, if you're a South Carolina, if you're a Kentucky, if you're in Arkansas, if you're in the bottom rung of the SEC or in the bottom rung of any conference, this should light a fire in your ass. And as LSU fans, we're not owed anything. Even though we're the big brand and we've won 3 different national championships with 3 different coaches, we got the last guy out who wasn't great. Cool, whatever. But anybody can win this thing now, all right? But Curt Cignetti was so bad tonight that it was almost thrown away. And this is the brilliance of this sport, is when you are given the opportunity to achieve something great, you better seize it, especially in this world of college football where it's going to be volatile every year. Hell, if you're Vanderbilt watching this, you're in Nashville. Nashville's the biggest media market in the SEC. You almost won the Heisman Trophy this year. Anybody can get this done. Anybody. But Cignetti was bad tonight, and lucky enough his players bailed him out. And I'll tell you why. He was tough. I did like the 4th and 5 decision to go for it to make it a 2-possession game. But at the end of the first half, far too conservative, horrible clock management, and Indiana very well could have drove down the field and kicked a field goal. Played it conservative because he got the first possession of the third quarter. If you look really closely, though, historically, teams that get that first possession in the third quarter with a 2-possession or more lead are normally pretty stagnant on that first drive coming out of the half. Whatever the case may be, you then have to blow 2 timeouts for really bad management. Now, coming out of one of those timeouts, you had the 4th and 5 Mendoza run. But then at the end of the game, Cignetti, you could feel, and any guy or gal that's listening to this is going to sound like it's just TMI, and I really don't care. But unless you have been in a high leverage situation in a sporting event, and I've not been on this stage, but I have played in big, playoff games back in my yesteryear. You can feel your own butthole clench. All right. And Cignetti's butthole was tight. It was the eye of a needle when on 2nd and 1, you have the big false start penalty from your best offensive lineman, and it's 2nd and 6. You have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and you decide to go run with the best jump ball receiver since Jamar freaking Chase. You tried to back into winning a national championship versus a Miami team that just drove down and won the Fiesta Bowl, and you don't even try and draw them off sides when Miami is the most undisciplined, penalty-ridden team in this playoff, and they've already had an offsides penalty earlier in this game to extend a drive. You don't try and force them to jump off sides and just kick a field goal for 5 extra yards. That was really bad management. So Cignetti almost threw all of this away, almost threw all of it away. But that's the beauty of football, all right? It is the beauty of football. You can have a bad day at the office, and I think some of it is because Indiana had played 2 blowout games. They really didn't play a whole lot of close down the haywire, down the stretch kind of games. They beat Ohio State on a mostly bad coaching decision from Ryan Day. Whatever the case may be, Cignetti, even though I thought he was not great in this game tonight, he did make the big 4th and 5 call, and he did just accomplish the greatest feat in the history of college football, which is doing this very thing. Now, I say all of that. This team is not better than 2019 LSU. Fernando Mendoza will never come close to the greatness of Joe Burrow. Never. It's impossible. The numbers aren't close. The actual film isn't close. The performances aren't close. The level of competition, it's tight, but 2019 LSU is still better. And, there's still going to be comparisons because people need clicks and all of that. But the truth still remains the same. I've said what I've said about the national championship game. It's now time for you to sound off. We also got to talk about Jordan Seaton. What is he going to do? Did he actually get on that plane to Oregon? They said that the dinner was canceled. Then at the same time, they said he was still on his visit. This is the power of a 5-star recruit. Remember, Jordan Seaton, according to his Instagram account, it looked as if when he flew into Baton Rouge, he flew in on a private jet. So these recruits, they can now set their schedules. It has never been a better time to be a college athlete, ever. And then, of course, I want to talk about Prince Will, the Ole Miss defensive end, who has a very interesting situation brewing at Ole Miss when it comes to him re-signing, buying him out, trying to get him to Baton Rouge. We'll see what happens there. So whoever you are watching this right now, this is going to be a weirder live stream because a lot of us want to talk about that all-time great game we just saw, and it was an all-time great game. It really was. And I give Mario Cristobal a lot of credit. I think he did some really good things. I thought his timeout in the first half was a really bad one, but outside of that, a false start on the very first play of a game-winning drive is pretty inexcusable. But it wouldn't have been Mario Cristobal if he didn't have one of those kind of gaffes. Whatever the case may be, I'm really excited to actually talk about a football game that we got to experience. Okay? So, what do we make of Indiana? Well, I've said everything I've needed to say. But my final thing is the Fernando Mendoza mother storyline and her health condition is one of the sweetest storylines I have ever heard. Literally, it just gets me choked up seeing her celebrate, and that the dad sits with her every game. First person man, that is just true freaking love, man. It just makes you so unfreaking believably happy. Dude is electric in interviews. Dude has his brother on his team. It is hard not to like this guy. All right. Something else I like about Indiana is that they're a very smart team. All right. So, let's take that corner, for instance, on that final play. It looked like pre-snap that it was single high. Safety comes over the top. Corner trusts the safety to come over the top. He trails it, undercuts it, game over. Indiana is one of the smartest football teams I've ever seen. Holy hell. They are so unfreaking believably smart. This was the worst game their offensive line played all year. Give Miami's defensive ends a lot of credit. I tweeted this out during the game. This felt like New England Patriots undefeated versus the New York Giants. Giants not as good of a team, but they have a clutch quarterback and they have a good pass rush. The only difference, though, is that they didn't get the Eli Manning magical throw at the end. It ended up being a pick. But Messidor and Bain one of the best defensive end pairings we have ever seen in this sport. And then, of course, holy heck. And look, if you're one of the 11,000 gajillion bajillion wide receivers that have come in to Baton Rouge, I am so happy you have signed with our Tigers. But I would trade 8 of those wide receivers as a whole for Malachi Toney. What in the world is this guy? When before the season, they're calling this guy Baby Jesus. And I'm like, what the? Baby Jesus? What? And I was kind of like offended. I was like, wait, what? And you sit and you watch this guy and you're like, what is this guy? What is he? What planet is he from? Was he born in a manger? Malachi Toney. Goodness gracious. You know, everyone talked about, Jeremiah Smith is the best true freshman wide receiver we have ever seen in college football. Sure. I'll give you that. But Malachi Toney is 10 times funner. I have not had this much fun watching a wide receiver since Jamar Chase. All right. That dude is him. All right. I will trade so many wide receivers we have signed for a half of Malachi Toney. That's how good that guy is. Get him the mother effing football. Also, shout out to CJ Daniels. I'm not going to rain on his parade. I'm glad he went to Miami and had a successful season. All right. He had some good moments in this game as well. RSX says the same thing. We go to Boris. Is it true some of the Indiana team are going directly from the dorms to the old folks' home? Yeah. I mean, they are older. That does help. And you're not going to have a whole lot of year 6, year 7. I thought Blake had a good tweet during the game that one of the players in this game, his first year of college football was 2019 LSU. Now, as far as this game and the bets I placed, I was on the under. And you know what I think the final total was 48, and this game ended at 48. All right. I felt like I was on the right side there with the 10-0 first half score. I was also in Indiana to cover. I thought they were the far better team, and I was wrong. I mean, Miami was right there with them. I think there were some pretty clear instances where the biggest problem with Miami was back. But Indiana is just a far better team. Do I think the 2 best teams competed in the national championship tonight? Yes, I do. But Miami, a little loose around the edges, if you will, a little rough, a little round, whatever you want to call that phrase. Just all the penalties and over the season, they had that weird ending versus SMU, and then they lost to Louisville at home on a Friday night. But overall, we'll do a quick stat breakdown, and then we'll get into some LSU-related things here. But I'm just happy we get to actually break down a game together. A fun one. Kind of cool to not have stakes in this one. But you take a look at it, Miami had 6.5 yards per play to Indiana's 4.4 yards per play. 7 penalties for 60 yards. Really poor special teams night with the block punt. But, Miami's defense just really showed up. I mean, they were the best unit on the field in this game. If you were to tell me going in that Indiana, basically their entire offense were just going to be back shoulder throws, I'm living with that. Their longest run was 20 yards. I'm living with that. Okay. Just an amazing game from the defense. And then, of course, offensively was kind of how Miami played offense throughout this whole playoff. Really slow starts, 0 points in the first half in this one. So there you go. I will also say this. Outside of Ole Miss, who actually played Miami, there wasn't an SEC team close to these 2 teams. All right. I think, obviously, if Indiana randomly just played Georgia on a neutral, Kirby could beat them. But I think Indiana's beating this year's version of Georgia, 4 out of every 5 times? So, I mean, God, we weren't close to either of these teams, right? Not just LSU, but I think most of the SEC felt that way. I don't know what the heck's happening. My phone just automatically started playing this stream. I don't know. I didn't even click anything. It's like my own phone's trying to listen to me. But what a great game. Okay. According to AI, says Detrovic 8708, statistically 2019 LSU is still better than this year's Indiana. Well, Detrovic, I don't need you to ask ChatGPT. I don't need you to ask Claude. I don't need you to ask Gemini. I don't need you to ask Allen Iverson that question because I know the answer to that already. I don't need the metaverse to tell me if 2019 LSU is better than Indiana. You saw the game tonight. Okay. Let's go to Jay Madison. Carter, do you think the Big Ten has stepped on the SEC physicality-wise? Not really. No, I mean, I don't think physicality is like the main reason why we are behind. I do think you can get into coaching. I do think you can get into experience. I do think you can get into the Big Ten just having some really, really, really good teams. We'll see if Indiana can keep this going. I think they will. And there you go. Leon. Oh, God, Leon. Leon's, the king of the Miami PHL contingent. I am live. I'm sorry, Leon. It sucks, dude. All right, it sucks. I can tell you, though, at least you didn't get your ass kicked. I know that doesn't mean anything, but 1-9-12 and the way we felt after losing to Alabama in the rematch is way worse than how you're feeling right now. Let's go to Chad. He says 2019 Clemson was a tougher opponent than that Miami team. I agree with that. I do. Is T. Higgins better than Charlie Becker? Is Trevor Lawrence better than Fernando Mendoza? Is Trevor Etienne better than Himby? I don't know. I think it's pretty close. Obviously, those guys will probably all be better pros than their Indiana counterparts, but man. But it's good to have you in here, Leon. Y'all show Leon some love. We don't have any Indiana PHLers. At least I don't think so. We have quite a few Miami fans that support us. Okay. So where's Seton at? I don't know the latest. I'll be honest. I don't know the latest. Last I heard, though, is that he was still in Baton Rouge. Now, what we can do, I was totally locked in on the national championship game. Actually missed the first quarter of the Natty live. I was able to catch up and see some of it, but I had to call a college basketball game tonight, which is why I'm kind of dressed a little bit nicer. So Jordan Seton was getting police escort somewhere. But I think a lot of you are really excited that the alleged supper club dinner wasn't happening. Okay. Trevor Lawrence was a late bloomer in the NFL. Let's go to Cap TCD. I want to get into some LSU stuff, but it seems like you guys want to keep talking about this game, which I would actually, I actually prefer to talk about actual football and an actual game instead of where somebody is. It's either you're going to sign or you're not going to sign. But I do feel the need, because this is an LSU channel, to get into some LSU stuff. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to stay on Miami, Indiana for another 10, 15. And then we'll get into a few different LSU things I want to get to. One thing I feel, and thank you, Jay Addison, as always, for your generosity. I do need to announce this, so before this gets crazy. So I was going to support LSU men's basketball for at least one game this season. I try to go to one game every year. And I planned on going to Fayetteville to support them this Saturday. Already paid for the hotel, already paid for the tickets, so on and so on. Okay. Well, there was an epic snowpocalypse happening in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and just throughout the South. So, just for clarity, I might not be going. I was going to meet up with some of our PHLers in Northwest Arkansas that were already going to the game. I don't know. All right. I'm going to make a final decision tomorrow. My wife and I were going. She's an Arkansas fan. I'm an LSU fan. We don't know. So I wanted to get that out before we get into full football mode. All right. First thing, the college football playoff is not going to be able to change next year's national championship date, which is January 25th. But the next year, they need to change the date and move it a little bit earlier in the calendar. It makes no sense to have the national championship game this late into the season, especially knowing how these portals and all of that works. We have got to end the season on New Year's Day. It just seems like that would be better, or at least end it earlier in January. But right now, this is unacceptable. We simply cannot keep allowing this to happen. I understand that gets into the Rose Bowl tradition and all of that. So there you go. Leon, thank you for the super chat. I have a feeling we're going to play Miami in the playoffs next year. And outside of that, this national championship is so good for the sport. It really is. Okay. You can definitely see some more of these smaller schools calling their big donors and saying, let's effing do this. Let's do this. Okay. So why not? Why not go for it? Why not? I mean, really put your best foot forward. And this sport is the NFL now. You might not like it, but this is the National Football League in so many different ways. Everybody's getting paid now. We have a lot more movement, players and coaches. We also have a lot more volatility year to year. All right. What is the NFL playoffs? Well, the NFL playoffs is basically, hey, look at the Patriots last year. Look at the Bears last year. You can turn things around really quickly. You've just got to have the right coach. You just got to have the right mentality. You have to have the right ownership, which obviously there isn't ownership in college football yet, but administration. And you got to have belief. If you get the right guy, though, you can turn things around quickly. So what does that mean? Well, the traditional brands don't have the power that they once did. Even though this playoff still did have Ohio State, it still did have Georgia. It still had Miami, which is obviously a lesser brand than those schools, but you get the point. We got Texas fans in here? Talking ish? Well, you guys got to be somewhere. There's no Texas YouTube channels for you to go to. 15 inches of snow in Olive Branch, Mississippi? Let's get to a few other Canes that are in the chat. I am disappointed, but still very proud of Miami. One pass away from winning the title. Yes, it is very disappointing, but they didn't get smacked like Oregon and Alabama. One interception away. Yeah, I mean, I do think put that guy in timeout. I do think you're the second best team, though. And sometimes that happens. I could make a case that this year's Miami team could have won the Natty last year. You know, but you didn't. But I there was a piece of me that kind of wanted Miami to win this because I grew up on Sean Taylor with the 10 advisor. I grew up on Willis McGahee, whose leg got bent like a boomerang. I grew up on Frank Gore, Jeremy Shockey, Ken Dorsey. That was my adolescence, the U. Kellen, I'm a mother effing soldier, Winslow. Well, I had to, man. Dude was calling other dudes cokeheads. I'm like, damn. We said to Seba 8154. What is going on with the Seton situation? Well, it's down to LSU and Oregon. And LSU tried their hardest to close it tonight. Seton has all of it. He has all the power, has all the leverage. Now, I put him in like a temporary timeout. He could come back, Leon. Leon, this is your chat tonight. I'm just gonna let the Hurricanes have it tonight. You guys need a venting situation. Okay. Indiana doesn't have anything to whine about tonight, obviously. So I have a tweet that's getting passed around about 2019 LSU. And now I got the 2020 Bama guys in my mentions. 2020 Bamas. What are we going to do with them? You can't be, Leon, you can't be done with your Hurricanes, man. You simply can't. Imagine, Leon, you could be in a worse spot. You could be a Florida State fan right now. All right. You could be a Seminole. Let's go to Curtis. LSU currently in the process of spending $40 million to miss on Jordan Seaton and go 9-3. Jordan, you're a married man. What are you doing looking up this name? What are you doing? What are you doing, bro? What are you doing? What kind of nonsense tomfoolery? You can get out of here at that nonsense. We do not speak of her name. Yeah, she was there with Mia Khalifa and Lisa Ann. You could be a Bama fan. Could be worse. But Leon, you can't be done with your Canes, bro. If you want to be an LSU fan, I'm not going to hold it against you. Okay. All right. Coming up next, we will go through everyone's favorite segment in all of LSU YouTube. Power Hour Network listeners and viewers, you might be consuming this content with that crick in your back that you've been trying to get rid of for so long. Take this as your sign today to book your appointment with LabordTherapy.com. In the Lafayette region, there is no one that you will find that cares more about any different type of pain that you might have than the team at LabordTherapy.com. Book today. Once again, that's LABORDE therapy.com, or you can visit one of their 5 locations all throughout the Lafayette region. Big thanks, Labord Therapy, LabordTherapy.com. Don't forget to send them a message on this glorious Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Congrats to everyone who celebrated this great day. And look, I've had the good fortune, before we go into what did Lane tweet today, I've had the good fortune to see the MLK Memorial in D.C. It was it's pretty amazing. It really is. I think D.C. is one of the best cities on earth. And, yeah, I was living there when the construction of that was happening. So I had to go back after I moved back to the South. And yeah, Martin Luther King Jr. I thought it was kind of funny from a college football standpoint that people are making fun of Florida State. You got to be really online to understand the Florida State MLK Jr. lore. Right? It's funny. We made that joke with the Leon a minute ago. It could be worse. I mean, I just couldn't imagine being a Florida State fan. You were absolutely destroyed by everybody on social media for the MLK post. And before we get to Sibley's super chat, I do want to go to what they tweeted out a few years ago. This is still the wildest thing I've ever seen on social media. The wildest thing. Happy MLK Day. Go Knowles. Hashtag do something. And it's MLK with the Florida State glove on. I just laugh so hard every time I see it. Oh, man. I just can't believe an actual social media admin said, let's do it. All right, before we go to the Lane Kiffin segment, do you think that the Big Ten has better players than 10 years ago? I do, thus catching up with the SEC. I don't think the Big Ten has let's take Ohio State, for instance. They're not better than what they were 10 years ago. They're about the same, right? But yeah, Indiana obviously is better. You know, Michigan State just a few years ago at Kenneth Walker, one of their better teams. Michigan, of course, just almost got the job done. Washington's had a good run, even though they're not quite Big Ten. But yeah, adding USC has made it better. Most notably, adding Oregon has made it better. The coaching has also just gotten a lot better in the Big Ten, right? Yeah. You lost Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, you lost, obviously, Urban Meyer just a few years ago. But the coaching is still really good. So, yeah, I mean, I do think the Big Ten has done a better job. And Sibley says, my brother went to IU, and I have never seen them win a game. Do they have the worst record in major ball? I do think, Sibley, if you were to ask, a lot of college football insiders 3 years ago, who is the worst program in college football? I would say a lot of people would have said Indiana. Of the FBS major conference programs, I think most would have said Indiana. Jimmy, thank you for the super chat. He asked, will LSU be a top defense next year? Yes. Yes. But I am concerned. I'm very concerned. We have got to be a lot more buttoned up. The one thing that the Indiana defense did a good job of this year was changing up their looks pre and post snap, all the way up until that Carson Beck interception. One thing Indiana did a really good job of as well was their defensive tackles were really smart. They really did a good job of playing together. There was a film study guy. His name is Landon Tingwell. And he did a really good breakdown of what the Indiana defensive tackles do to help defend against the run. They do a lot of games over the middle where it's a lot of like picks, stunts is what it's called on the defensive line, little twists and loops. And you normally associate that with passing downs, but it could be absolutely lethal on rushing downs. And it's hard. It's really hard. NFL teams do a good job of this. You don't necessarily associate it as much in the college game with DT stunts, run stunts over the middle, but God, they were the best at it. Indiana were really, really, really good at it. So it's not just that they had older players; it's that they were one hell of a smart team. So let's take LSU for instance. We didn't have that up the middle. We just didn't have that at the defensive tackle position. It's been a really tough go at it. LSU in the first year under Blake Baker, we were really bad in a stat called rush yards before contact, which is the amount of yards a running back has before he's actually touched. And this year, our rush defense was also very hot and cold, in particular versus mobile quarterbacks. But yeah, we got to be a lot better stopping the run. And then when you do get exotic on third down, obviously the Clemson game was an all-time LSU defensive performance. That didn't age as well because Clemson's offense ended up being ass. Still, though, there was a lot of rough third down defense, a lot of rough red zone defense, and we have got to simply just do a better job of being buttoned up. And then we get into the big thing, which is we will not have Mansour Delane. We will not have AJ Halsey. Now, we can dwell on not having those two, but let's go through just a few things that could point to LSU having a better defense. The first is that the staff is mostly going to stay together. We have one change, and that's on the defensive line. We do bring in, obviously, Chris Kiffin as, the co-linebackers coach. But, basically, the defensive coaching staff and brain trust got potentially better with Sterling and Lucas coming over from South Carolina. But you look historically. Let's take Ole Miss, for instance. Their best defense in school history was last year. This year's Ole Miss defense was not nearly as good as last year's Ole Miss defense. Ole Miss played an easier schedule this year compared to this year to last year, but their defense was still good enough for them to make a run in the playoff. Then you look at, obviously, LSU's best defenses. What are the national championship defenses at LSU? Well, in 2011, we lost Patrick Peterson, a Mount Rushmore LSU football player. We lose him, and then we fielded the best secondary of all time. Now, we didn't become a better secondary because we lost Patrick Peterson. It's just our unit was still really good without him. Same thing happened in 2019. In 2018, we lost arguably the best linebacker in school history in Devin White. But we still have Patrick Queen, Jacob Phillips, and, the rest. So, Yeah, I'm very concerned that we don't have Halsey and Delane. I mean, these are two of the best LSU football players of the past 5 to 10 years. They were really that good. And yeah, it sucks. It really, really, really sucks. Delane is arguably the best corner we've had since Patrick Peterson. It's going to sting. It's going to really sting. And then, of course, you have Halsey out the door. But I do think our defense could still be great. Now, you can't argue Delane versus Derek Stingley. Sting probably has a slight edge there because he was younger in his big season. But whatever the case may be, I'm really excited about this LSU defense next year. Now let's go to Lane Kiffin. What did he tweet today? Thanks for all the supers. But you cannot delay. You cannot deny the inevitable. The best segment in all of LSU YouTube. Hassan Longstreet at the LSU facilities today. And I think a lot of you know who that is next to Hassan. This is actually a good recruiting pitch for Mr. Knox Kiffin to the right, is that he is a class of 2028 quarterback, and he dwarfs a second-year five-star quarterback in size. Lane Kiffin retweets our number one overall baseball ranking going into next year. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. You take a look at all the other teams. Texas in the SEC, number 2. Mississippi State, number 3. Auburn, number 6. Arkansas, number 9. So that's 5 SEC teams in the top 10. And then you have Georgia, you have Tennessee, you got Vanderbilt, you got Florida, who had a weird offseason. Branson Hudson gets an offer from LSU football. Congrats to you, Branson. The younger brother of 5-star tight end Ahmad Hudson, who is an absolute freak. So, you know how like you see a piece of clothing and it's LSU related and you're always like, God, I got to have that. This is the first time that really happened to me because Lane's son, or I say his son, his nephew Cookie here, I've got to have that Louisiana hat. I just do. That is one of the coolest hats I can remember. Like I'll put it on up here. Dude, that hat is so cool. I got to have it. Now, the problem is hats are a tough thing for me because my head is just too big. I have a chicken nugget infused on the back of my head. And we had an anthropologist one day share what that actually is. I hope it's not cancer. But I just have I think it's called an orbital protuberance or something like that. We keep it going. But that, of course, is Governor Landry with Cookie. 5-star wide receiver Monshun Sales has LSU in his top 6 schools. I think I got booted out. So here we are. Good to be back. Yeah, an anthropologist told me what was on the back of my head. He called it a protuberance. Let's go to A Scallion or Scallon 94. He says Tamarcus Cooley is still on our roster. Yeah, he's a pretty good player too. Really good player. Oh, man. That's kind of crazy. It's not letting me put Pierce's comment up on the screen. I'm serious. Like it's not because I hate Pierce. The Big Ten owns college football, says the thinker. Oh, I'm sure it does. Okay. Imagine if Miami pays $10 million for Darian Mensah. Well, after that interception, I think a lot of Miami fans are going to be willing to write the check. All right, we'll take a few more here before we get into what I think about Prince Will. Carter, do you think it's possible we have a real quarterback battle even though we paid Sam Levitt the most money? Yeah, I do because, I don't think Lane is going to look at this as, hey, we're paying this guy X amount of money. We absolutely need to start him for a few reasons. The first is if you're doing this in the NFL, you really do have a hard cap, right? Like how much you're paying that quarterback, you do need to see what you really have because your quarterback could play for a gazillion years, basically. In college, everything is so year to year that you really don't have to play someone simply because of the money you pay to play to play that or to pay the player to come there. You don't need to do it, right? Anyone you think that is the best option for the team, you play that player. Now, Sam Levitt is the best quarterback of the three. He just is. Hassan Longstreet is going into this knowing that it's a developmental year. I do see a world where Landon Clark beats out Longstreet for the backup quarterback role. I don't think that's too far-fetched, even though, Longstreet is the 5-star. And, I don't know a gazillion percent who got what. Some people have thrown some numbers out there. I do have an understanding, though, of Longstreet getting more money than Clark. And look, my opinion on this matter isn't because we had Landon's trainer on here. It's just we actually know what Landon Clark looks like versus other college football players. We don't know that with Longstreet. He only played garbage time minutes this past year, and Landon Clark was in some pretty big moments, and he delivered in a big way for Elon in some big moments. So, I'm not ready to name a QB2 yet, but I do think Sam Levitt's going to be taking your first snap next year. Now, what do I make of Sam Levitt as a quarterback? He's pretty good. And I know a lot of us are going to say, well, no doubt he's good. We wouldn't have paid him all this money. But how good? Well, as we have discussed through 2 full Sam Leavitt film studies, he really does lack in some of the basic throws that a quarterback needs to make on a down-to-down basis. He'll miss the easy swing passes in the flats. He'll miss easier, shorter throws, while at the same time deliver some of the most breathtaking deep balls you will see. It is somewhat Chambliss-like how he plays. I think as far as a play extender and getting the football deep down the field, you can make a case that Leavitt is actually better in that category than Chambliss was this past year. But then again, Chambliss, I think, would have won the Heisman had he played the full season. Then we get into what is Leavitt like as a runner. He is a very good runner. Very wiry, right? A lot of guile and creativity in his rushing style. He reads rushing lanes really well. But I do think when it comes to running, you have got to separate guys that are great scramblers, guys that are great design runners, and guys that are great at both. So for me, Sam Leavitt is a very good scrambler, a very good play extender. But for some reason, and this is somewhat anecdotal, it didn't really seem like he was much of a design runner. QB draw here, quarterback pull read there. They had some creative, we're going to show jet sweep one time, and then the next time we're going to pull it and run like a QB counter up the middle. There was some of that. It wasn't non-existent. But it is amazing when you actually look at these all-time great quarterbacks at the collegiate level. So many games, even from the pocket guys, are won with the quarterback draw and a well-timed QB run. No better example of that than tonight with Fernando Mendoza. Oh, wait. There is a better example of that. 2019 LSU. Joe Burrow was a very good design runner on QB draws. In fact, you look at all the close games that LSU actually won. There was a design Joe Burrow run that truly did turn the tide of that game. Alabama late. Auburn, touchdown in the fourth quarter. Clemson, touchdown. It's big. The design QB run game. I do think we'll see more of that from Leavitt this next year. Okay? Stanley says the deep balls are what really matters. Yes and no. In comparison to last year, sure, because we were not a good deep ball team. A lot of that was Garrett. A lot of that was our wide receiver talent. A lot of that was the play calling. A lot of that was the offensive line. So basically, a lot of it was all of it. But yes, I do think this is going to be the Sam Leavitt show in week 1. Okay. Let's see. Did I miss any lane tweets? I don't think so. All right. We are due for another break. We'll come back right after this and take a look at the overall LSU portal class. It's PHL, baby. Let's go.
Are you a die-hard LSU fan? And would you like to understand the complex game of football better? Well, sign up today for our PHL Patreon. This is his second touchdown. Counter G, why you're pulling the guard. We dive deep on recruiting and the transfer portal at a level that you have never seen before. Film breakdowns from so many different angles, and my personal favorites, oh yeah, the analytics, baby. I like to get nerdy. We take a look at cutting-edge statistics that help all of us understand LSU football even better. And guess what? every new sign-up gets a Joe Burrow card in the mail for free. But we got to save the best for last. Our private Discord community of LSU fans from around the globe. Sign up today, patreon.com/LSU football, and put your name on our wall of patrons. Special thanks to everybody who's on here. Let's freaking go!
Let's go!
On a journey together with Zion Imaging. I want you to see this experience up close. And me as a wedding and event DJ, I watched how everybody had so much fun with Zion Imaging. And a big reason for their success is the team. Yes, Jaron Thomas and his family started this off as a passion project, and they have one simple goal in mind: taking your event to the next level. Whether it's a wedding, reunion, quinceañera, school, or corporate event, Zion Imaging is all about family-friendly fun. And I gotta show you on this tour the high-level technology that quickly sends your video session to your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android. Yes, it's the Zion Imaging 360 spin booth experience, serving North Texas, North Louisiana, South Arkansas, Orlando, and more. Give us a call, 318-469-4265. Check us out on Facebook or book us at Zion Imaging, XYANimaging.com.
Keelan Moses is back with LSU, the backup true freshman linebacker. Pretty interesting player. Obviously, his older brother was Dylan Moses, one of the most talked about. Actually, I'll just say it. He is the most talked about linebacker recruit in the history of college football. He was on the front page of ESPN Next. And Dylan, of course, spurned LSU, even though he was at U-High, and ended up signing with Alabama. So Keelan is a younger brother. He also played at U-High. Obviously, there have been some big U-High commits, most notably Lamar Brown recently. Keelan really didn't play that much. Got to redshirt, and we go into next season with him hopefully being able to contribute. There's been a lot of discussion about the TJ Daugherty pickup, and do we actually see a world where LSU has Daugherty and Weeks as the primary backers, and where does Devon Keys fit in all of this, with Keys having some pretty high tackle numbers this year? And I don't know. I really, really, really don't know what Blake and the coaching staff is going to do, but we shall see what happens. Okay. Dang, LSU Tiger. What's the deepest is, dang, Pierce mentions Abuela Danger, and things get a little frisky here. That's a comment right there. I don't know. I'm not gonna find out. It's not gonna be me. All right. I wanted to get to this. They already have next year's national championship odds up. Right now, LSU is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th best odds to win the national championship is LSU at 1,100. I could see that have some movement if the Seton thing does go through. is Abuela Danger a wide receiver or a tight end? "60 yards in the air," says LSU Tiger. I was wondering how deep those balls can go. I don't know. Landon says he could throw it 80-plus yards. Let's go to Sibley. He says LSU's recruiting under Brian Kelly was overall not good. Slight disagreement. Per the recruiting rankings, they were fine. The development wasn't great, though. It wasn't. It was interesting that the most viral thing leading up to today's game was Nick Saban's comments about the recruiting rankings and the star rankings. And he said that, he doesn't really look at the rankings and the stars and all of it. It goes by what his eyes and his staff's eyes say. I don't know if I truly do believe that, but, I do think the rankings are influenced by the offers that are dished out to the kids. And I also think vice versa. It happens, right? Kids will get offers because they do have a high star ranking. It is interesting, though, that LSU's dud rate of the elite recruits is just so high. And I do think better coaching is going to change that. But yeah, one thing that was very interesting about quite a few LSU players were, some of the elite ones that they signed really late in the process weren't that good. And it made you wonder, did LSU sign some of these guys because the other schools just faded on them altogether once they gathered more intel? And then we actually got those guys, and then they didn't turn out to be that great at all. It's always an interesting dichotomy, if you will. Austin, welcome. I like the X profiles. We had a family photo. I don't know which one is Austin, but welcome. If Lane closes Seton and Princely, it would be incredible. LSU is fun again. Yeah, I think if LSU gets both of these commitments, they're going to get some votes to win the SEC next year. Obviously, the heavy favorite's going to be Texas, and they're definitely going to have the most votes to win the SEC next year. If you go get Cam Coleman and you have Colin Simmons and you have Arch Manning going into next year, it's going to be a lot of Texas and Georgia. God, dude, you do wonder about Georgia. They were such a young team. They do lose Monroe Freeling, but they do get their quarterback back. What do we make of Georgia going into next year? And then, of course, the way too early look at LSU's schedule. And this was before the portal really got going. I had LSU as a 9-3 team. And that's about where I still stand, obviously, with the portal class being what it was. If anything, it made me more bullish on LSU going into next year. So, Clemson won a nice recruiting battle today, but we take their best returning defensive lineman in Stefan Green, who is kind of forgotten about because he was so early in the portal class compared to some of these other guys. But, you look at the schedule overall, and there's a very real chance that LSU could be 5-1 to start this year. One team that I think really improved themselves the most this portal cycle outside of LSU is Kentucky. I really, really like some of the things that Kentucky did. I do think Kenny Minchie can be a good player. They do get Nick Anderson. They do get Lance Hurd. Kentucky's going to be interesting. I think they get a coaching upgrade. And even if you don't think what they did with getting Will Stein is an upgrade, they did need to move on. One team that I feel is going to be a little bit of a fade for me, and it's not going to be a popular fade, but you do wonder a bit here about Texas A&M. All right, so you take a look at Texas A&M. You look at their early schedule, it's at the bottom of the screen here. You get Missouri State. You do get a weaker P4 game versus Arizona State. How good is that team going to be next year? I don't know. You start off Kentucky at LSU, hosting Arkansas at Missouri. So you do have one of the weaker starts in the SEC. All right. You can argue A&M's got the easiest opening schedule and opening first 7 weeks compared to anyone else. But then it's at Alabama, at South Carolina, Tennessee, at Oklahoma, and then Texas in a rivalry game. A&M hires an offensive coordinator in-house that's never called plays before. What? Crazy. Crazy world. The Titans hired Robert Saleh. Interesting. Good move. Saleh deserved another shot. Micah Parsons even tweeted out, I better never hear a comparison of Joe Burrow on that LSU team to this Indiana unit. That's Micah Parsons, who has no reason to say that. Like, I'm trying to think if there's any prominent 2019 LSU teammates that Micah Parsons would have played with in Dallas. I can't really think of any. I mean, Damon Clark was on those teams, and he's played for Dallas. And then obviously with Green Bay, there's really not anyone there either. And that's just Micah Parsons. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's true, Mike. Let's go to Austin on Twitter. Brutal schedule. I agree. 9-3, 10-2. I mean, if LSU goes 10-2 at that schedule, they're in the playoff. Yeah, I'm not going to say they're a near mortal lock because Vanderbilt didn't get in at 10-2, but Vanderbilt's non-conference isn't as impressive as beating a team like Clemson in the non-con. Fernando Mendoza tonight, 16-27, 186 yards. Once again, I mean, it's just so hard to compare anyone to Joe Burrow. There's a typo in this as well. I think Joe was 31 of 39. Oh, he was 31 of 49. Okay. .463. Still 31 of 49. Still really good. Oh, man. 97.3 QBR in a natty. Crazy. 6 total touchdowns. Nuts, man. Might not have even been a top 3 Burrow game, which is crazy to even think about that season. I mean, I think most would have that number 1. I don't know, man. You can make a case Alabama was better You can make a case Auburn was better, especially if you look at the tape. The Auburn tape is different than his actual numbers in that game. Oklahoma, you can make a case, but that was more of a blowout. Texas, but Clemson, man, crazy. Crazy. Much is going to be made about Mendoza and his pro prospects. Look, I don't care. I'm just glad the Raiders are going to have something at quarterback. Their fans are just they deserve something. And Brady's with the Raiders, so that means Mendoza's a lock to be great. It's a good super chat here from Sibley. Carter, LSU has the upper hand because Lane has a knack for evaluating talent regardless of the star system. Everyone has money, but everyone cannot evaluate talent. The best LSU talent next year since 2011. Obviously, 2019 was more talented. I don't know. No, they were more talented. I think you meant to say since 2021, where we did have a lot of good players. So is Lane a better talent evaluator than most? Yes, I do think so. The first thing that Ole Miss fans would say is, well, Lane wasn't the one that recruited Trinidad, and I don't really care. Does Trinidad Chambliss have the season that he had if he's at Oregon or something like that? I don't know. I mean, you really don't know. But I keep going back to one overall philosophical difference that Lane has over, let's say, a guy like Joe Sloan or a guy that doesn't have as much offensive play calling prowess. Let's say someone who's respected, but is not in the elite tier play callers, a guy like Billy Napier, right? So for me, one thing Lane does a really good job of is really giving his offensive players great angles to make blocks and keeping the defense guessing. And so much of his brilliance comes down to how Ole Miss sets you up formationally. They do a really good job of spreading you out. Now, there's different ways you can, spread defenses out, right? So like Tennessee, their way of doing it is light boxes by putting wide receivers super wide outside of the numbers, sometimes inserting a tight end. What Ole Miss likes to do is using trips, right? They'll put trips to the field, which means there's going to be 3 wide receivers to the wide side of the field. And sometimes they'll put trips into the boundary or 2 receivers into the boundary, which is the short side of the field. And that creates more space for a 1 wide receiver on one side of the field. And that can give you such a leg up in the run game. All right. So, so much of what the LSU offense is going to do next year is going to come down to what Trades Green does next year as a player. So let's go back to Sibley Super Chat here. There's a lot different ways you can evaluate talent. But the biggest thing is, does that talent work for how you actually want to run things? All right, so for example, a guy like Trades Green. All right, so he is a tight end, but he's been more effective as a receiver lined up outside. Sure. The Vanderbilt touchdown that he had was a little tight end leak play that you normally see from a tight end. But a lot of his success was him lined up out wide. you know, in a perfect world, Trey Green becomes a good blocker, and he is just our every down tight end. All right, so that would be the perfect case scenario. And that would make our offense virtually unstoppable if he could block. But can he do it? Physically, it's a challenge when you didn't block a whole lot in high school and you're 6'7". It's physics, right? It's really hard. So if he can do that, it makes all of your offensive linemen's jobs a lot easier. All right, so I think Trades is honestly a really good example of this. He was an easy talent to evaluate. He was a 5-star, basketball background, catch radius at the wazoo, dominant high school football player. So Lane, you're going to get more 5-stars to get to LSU. But how many 5-stars are you going to have? You still need to get 4 stars in there, 3 stars in there that know what their jobs are, and you being able to extract the best out of those players in your image and how you want to actually run your offense. Let's take a good player on Ole Miss's offense last year. It's a guy that I'm really familiar with. His number is 75, and his name is Patrick Custis. All right, so Patrick was a very interesting evaluation. He was an offensive lineman at Arkansas, and he wasn't really that good. He was not really that good. Arkansas, you could have made a case this past year, should have won the Joe Moore Award. Their offensive line was really good. They had one weakness, and that was right tackle, and that guy got a lot of money to go play at Oklahoma this next year. So they really didn't have too big of a weak link. So their offensive line actually got better when Kustis left. He goes to Ole Miss, and he had a tough game to start the year with Georgia. I think Georgia State is who they played. And then he had some rough moments versus Kentucky. So it was one of those things where somehow, some way, he got better as the season moved on. At Arkansas, he really wasn't that good of a player. But as the season moved on, he got really good. I don't know if it was Chambliss. I don't know if it was Lacey. Just kind of coming into his own. But he became a pretty daggum good football player. All right. So one thing Lane does a good job of is problem solving. What can I do to make life easier on this player? And, in the modern game, I really do think the value of having a tight end who can do everything, like Daquan Wright, can really change a lot for your team. Okay. So another thing Lane does a good job of is he runs a lot of plays that doesn't put stress on your offensive lineman needing to execute every single block for the play to be successful. And that was a big problem with a lot of Joe Sloan's run plays is a lot of those runs needed every block to be executed for it to work. Well, that's really hard to do if you don't have great offensive linemen. I guarantee you Pierce is the biggest Trades fan in this chat. And he thinks Trades should be an every down wide receiver. Here's what I would say about that is you are going to play so much more if you're an every down tight end in Lane's system than you are as a wide receiver. Oh, so you think 2011 was a more talented LSU team than 2019 overall? All right, so yeah, I'll go through that really quickly. 2011 running backs, that was a deeper group. But Clyde was better. So obviously 2019 had more upside in their running back room. 2011's running back room, I think, was more well-rounded. So I'll give that a push. Quarterback, it's not close. Offensive line, it's really close. I will give the slightest of edges to 2019 still, because they did win the Joe Moore. But I do think that's close. Wide receiver is not close. All right, outside of quarterback, that's probably the widest discrepancy between this. Even though 2011, you had super young Jarvis Landry, and then you also had Odell and Ruben. Okay. Then go to the defensive line. The defensive lines were totally different styles. We had an Iranian tight front, and then, we had a traditional four-man front on the 2011 team. So that's probably the hardest position group to compare. I would probably still give the slightest of edges to 2011 there. Linebacker, I would give the edge to 2019. And then the secondary, that's obviously 2011's big calling card. So there you go. Special teams is a push for the most part, but I do think 2019 is more talented. I do. Okay. I think 2019 LSU would be favored versus 2011 LSU by 9.5. I do. I really, really, really do. If Dave Aranda had time to prepare for Jordan Jefferson, there's nothing they can do about that. Okay, there's just nothing. All right, we'll take a few more here. We do know that Lane met with the governor. Yeah, the broken rib. You're right, Austin. So yeah, if you were to rank the Burrow performances, I think most would have Clemson number one. I think most would. Yeah, that's probably correct. But you can make a case it's not number one or number two. It just depends on how you want to look at it. Yeah, I think statistically, many would say it's Oklahoma. But for me, it's probably Clemson, Alabama, or Auburn. Kurt Signetti just said this to the media. We'll take the day off, and then we'll get back at it on Wednesday. Like, college football really is a sport where you really honestly just don't have any time to do anything. God, dude. I do wonder if God. I don't know. I think LSU's winning it all next year. Okay. I think we're going to win it all. Let's turn this bitch around in year one. Let's go. Let's go. Just get us in the damn dance. I want to host a playoff game so bad. I know it's irresponsible. Let's just do it, man. Let's just believe for once. And they want to ruin this sport by making this a 2014 playoff. What's the deal with the Wilson kid that plays edge? I don't know the latest with he's a Missouri transfer that started his career at Georgia. I really don't know. Like, I do know he had that weird situation with Georgia and his NIL stuff. Oh, look at this. I did not see this because I went live straight after the game. Look at this. Okay, I just saw that one of you DM'd me this. Mark Fletcher. Mendoza's mom was great. Fletcher's mom's story where she drives to every single game is even better. Look at this, though. Mark, dude. Look at that, man. Wow. Wow. Mark, dude, you had the most goodwill built, man. Mark had the best story in this entire playoffs. Outside of course, Indiana. Mark lost his dad, and then his mom is like the sweetest lady. She drives to every single game. Why do this, man? Why? You went from lovable to LeGarrette Blount in 2 seconds. Bro, it's not worth it. You're going to you see that number on your jersey? That's the K that they caught you in, man. 4K. There really is no place on the planet Earth per capita where there are more cameras than at a football game. You got every single ESPN camera. You got security footage. You have everybody having a supercomputer in their pocket that could shoot high definition footage. You can't do that. In the tunnel after the game, sure. But not while you're still wearing the brand colors. And he had his helmet off. And you have yours on. Why, man? You just can't do that, man. Oh, bro. You act like he killed somebody, Carter. Relax. I never said he did that. I'm just saying you're always going to be caught. All right, you're always going to be caught. And I'll say this, man. What is the hit rate of players who get caught doing something like that? Does that take you off my draft board? Yeah, Jay, I'm not going to completely assassinate the young kid's character. That's not what I'm doing at all. I said all the nice things about him. Lost his dad. He still texts his dad. I still text my father-in-law. And he's been gone for a year now. I still send him barbecue recipes. We all deal with grief in different ways. And his mother's story was so good. But if you fight him in the tunnel, it doesn't look as bad as that. Yeah, he is coming back. I just hate it for him, man. Because I just based on everything I've heard about it, it doesn't seem like something he would do. Crazy, man. God, this game was what I needed. I needed this game tonight. What if the Saints get Reuben Bain next year? Like that is like the perfect heir apparent to Cam Jordan. So what if Reuben Bain, who has the same thing as Will Campbell, short arms, if Reuben Bain is at pick number 8, do the New Orleans Saints have to take him? It would make sense. It would make a lot of sense. Cam Jordan resigns, coaches him up, and we have the Reuben Bain and Tyler Shuck era. But do you really think Reuben Bain is going to go top 5? Is it really a lock that Reuben Bain is going top 5? Mendoza's going 1, and there really isn't a lock after that. There are a few wide receiver needy teams in that range. But if Reuben Bain falls to 8, the most popular sexy pick is Sam Levitt's teammate, Jordan Tyson, for the Saints at 8. You really think he's top 5, a lock for top 5? Let's do this. Delane is going to the Rams in every single mock draft. But Mendoza, number 1. Arvell Reese, number 2. Reuben Bain, number 3. Could he fall to number 8 to the Saints? Or should I say this for my Saints fans in the chat? I want you to tell me, would you want Jeremiah Love or would you want Reuben Bain? Tell me. I could see that with the NIL stuff going on. And also the 2020 COVID season hurting the development of a lot of these kids. SEC finished the year with the worst bowl record. We literally had the fewest amount of wins and the most amount of losses by three full losses. Crazy. 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 But I'll be honest, dude. That is the single most impressive feat in coaching. I can't get over this. Like, imagine going to Indiana, doing the Brian Kelly thing where they give you a microphone and you talk to a crowd of people at the basketball arena, and fires everyone up, and then Kurt Signetti does the quote, "I win, Google me," and then you win the damn Natty. You go to a playoff in year one, and then you win the Natty in year two. Now, my thoughts right now is I would put the chances of landing both of them at like 60-ish%. And the chance of landing neither, I'd say roughly about 10%. Oh, is that true? Mississippi State almost hired Sig? Oh, God. I didn't know that. I really didn't. we had that Josh Allen discussion, and we then see Sean McDermott got fired earlier this year, or earlier today. And they should have done this a few years ago, but they finally do the right thing and get rid of him. It's not that McDermott sucks. It's just he's probably more defensive coordinator. I do find it a bit interesting, though, that these NFL teams are still hiring these non-offensive guys to run their ship. Yeah, I know Vrabel is doing great things, but I got Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is probably the best OC in the league. So, yeah, it's interesting. So Robert Saleh gets hired. Yeah, I don't know. I really, really, really don't know. So there you go. Now, let's go to all the supers. Ryan, appreciate you. Jared, Boris, Leon. Leon did leave after that. I understand. It was tough. Sibley is our top super chatter. Mr. Jimmy also holding it down. No new members. I need to do a better job of telling people about our YouTube membership program. Highly recommend you join it. And our Patreon. We'll have something out tomorrow for our patrons. A very happy National Championship Eve and the real fun, or National Championship Night. The real fun begins tomorrow. Crazy. It is. Power Hour. LSU. Boom. I'm about to drop a message in the Discord, so go sign up now. Tonight we are doing we're doing some mahi. That is funny, James. Yeah, his shape up is something, to say the least. Let's go.